Hi, everyone. Welcome to your Slack launch webinar. We're going to start the session shortly, but how are you doing today, Kyle?
I am doing just fine and dandy, Jamie. I am very excited to be here. Make some admin superstars out of everyone watching.
I know, I'm really excited. We're going to kind of hop into it here, but before we do, I'll go over just some technical pieces. So while you wait, you can actually follow these steps to open Slack on your computer. The first way you can do this is to open Slack in your browser by going to slack.com/sign-in and following the sign-in instructions. For the second way, you can open the Slack app if you have already installed it on your computer. To open the Slack app, you can search for the app on your computer and click on the Slack icon to open the app. If you haven't installed the desktop app yet, you can download it anytime at slack.com/downloads. However, installing the app is not a requirement for the training. If you don't have it yet, no need to install it now, and you can join via the browser. So we're really excited to have everyone here. And again, welcome to your Slack launch webinar. Thank you for joining us today. So my name is Jamie Zeithimmel. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm a senior success manager here at Slack. I cover our enterprise customers in a variety of industries. I'm joined today by the fabulous Kyle. Kyle, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Jamie. As Jamie mentioned, my name is Kyle LaValle, and I happen to be Jamie's favorite colleague, but I'm also a success guide, and I work with a variety of customers in a variety of industries.
He really is. So this is going to be a wonderful session today.
A wild ride.
Perfect. So we do have a really exciting agenda for you today. During this 15-minute training session, we're going to teach you how you can launch Slack at your organization in 5 simple steps. We have also prepared a PDF handout for you to download at the end of the presentation. It contains all the important information for you to keep in mind, so you don't need to worry about taking furious notes today. We've got you covered.
Slack's got your back, everybody. Don't worry about it.
And during this training, you'll be asked to participate in live activities in Slack, so you can start doing essential steps for launching Slack at your organization. You'll be completing these activities in your own company's Slack workspace. For the most ideal experience, we recommend you join from your computer and have the webinar screen and your Slack open side by side. Please see the instructions on screen for how you can do this. As a reminder, if you've already installed the Slack app on your computer, look for the Slack app and open it. If you haven't downloaded the app yet, not a problem. You can join from your browser. You can do this by opening a new browser tab, navigate to slack.com/sign-in, and follow the login instructions.
Perfect. Thanks, Jamie. And a few other things to call out before we kick things off. Your participation in this training is anonymous. Other participants can't see you, and no information about your participation will be communicated to your company. All the activities we'll do together during this training will be visible only to you, unless you decide to share it with others at your company. We always recommend spreading the word. But overall, this is your chance to experiment with Slack features freely.
Thanks, Kyle. So if you do have trouble opening Slack or have any other technical issues, please reach out to feedback@slack.com, and our customer experience team will be able to assist you. One housekeeping item: if any of your screens freeze or you can't see us, go ahead and refresh your browser window, and that should take care of it. All right, are we all set to go here, Kyle?
I think we're ready to roll. Let's get for it.
Woohoo! Okay, so first things first, let's start with what is Slack?
But before we do, Jamie, a little known fact for the folks at home: Slack, while being an amazing tool, is actually an acronym for Searchable Log of All Conversations and Knowledge. So take that to your coworkers. It's not just a random word.
I love that. That's a kind of little known fact, so that's a good tidbit to start us off. So here at Slack, our mission is to make people's working lives simpler, more pleasant, and more productive. Slack is a new way of working and not just another chat or messaging tool. Slack is your intelligent productivity platform that brings automation, knowledge, and collaboration together so your teams can do the following 3 things. The first is accelerating work with AI and automation that's easy enough for anyone to use. The second would be to share and search data and knowledge from any source right in the flow of work to avoid context switching and to save your team's time. And the third is collaborate and engaging everyone with flexible tools that keep work moving between teams, partners, and customers. Slack AI brings powerful generative AI capabilities natively into Slack, starting with channel recaps, thread summaries, and searching answers. While we won't delve into Slack AI specifics in this webinar, we encourage you to explore further at slack.com/AI. This webinar does work best for users who are comfortable with Slack fundamentals. If you're new to Slack, you're welcome to stay with us. However, we do recommend you take the Slack Workshop 101 if you haven't already. You can watch the training at slack.com/events/workshop101 with a couple other of our fabulous colleagues, Lauren and Christina.
You know, Jamie, I think Christina actually trained me on Slack 5 years ago.
Wow.
So go check that out if you have the chance. She knows her stuff.
I love that. And also stay with us and we'll show you how you can launch Slack at your organization today in 5 steps.
So to kick us off on those 5 steps, step 1 will be thinking through how you will provide access to Slack to the employees that you work with and support. There are 3 actions admins are going to want to start with. The first is giving access to members. The second is going to be adding them to channels. And then the third is going to be grouping users. We'll go through all 3 right now. So when you're considering adding members to Slack, there's a couple different methodologies that you're going to be able to follow. The first is going to be sending out email invites, or you have the ability to manage member access through your SSO provider. My recommendation would be to check out what your current Slack plan might support here. But if you're not sure, you can reach out to feedback@slack.com, and our team will be happy to assist with helping you out. So to kick things off in terms of email invitations, I've just mentioned you can invite new members into your Slack workspace by simply sending email invitations. You can do this one at a time, or if you have a whole list of emails, you can send these invites en masse. Just make sure that the emails are separated by commas. And speaking of email in general, our pending member invitations feature allows you to loop members of your team into conversations even before they accept an invitation to join Slack. They will start receiving email notifications from Slack, and if they reply by email, the message will flow back into channel. This allows you to add members to channels, mention them in messages, or send direct messages without anybody skipping a beat. So even before they accept that invitation, they're already active in Slack and doing all the things they need to do to collaborate. Also, you can manage member access through your single sign-on provider, and this makes things a little bit more efficient. If you're on our Pro plan, we will support G Suite SSO with Google, and if you're on our Business Plus or Enterprise Grid plans, we fully support SAML SSO through many of the common identity providers. On the Business Plus plan and up, Slack Skim API also supports automated provisioning and deprovisioning. This promotes ease of use with increased user people search, as well as enhanced analytics with department-level engagement metrics. If your members are pre-positioned, their accounts will be provisioned. Their accounts will be set up for them prior to accessing Slack, and they can receive email notifications if they miss out on anything happening before logging in. We invite you to learn a little bit more about SSO on the link on the slide. And then in regard to SSO pre-migration requirements, if you are on the free Pro or Business Plus account, and you choose to upgrade, or if you're already part of our Enterprise Grid plan, there are some requirements to meet before migrating your account. You can learn more about this by checking the link on the slide, and our support team would be happy to help you out at feedback@slack.com. So now that we have our members added in, let's talk a little bit about inviting them into channels. You'll want to make sure that members are proactively added to channels so that they don't join Slack with an empty inbox. To add members to a channel, simply select a specific channel and click the cluster of pictures in the top right. Search for people by name or email and add them. If you need to add up to 1,000 users at a time, you can also copy and paste their email addresses or usernames in bulk to make the job easier. You can simply add members to specific channels on the fly as well, or consider creating a default channel and user group. Channel membership can be optimized as default channels will create automatic channel membership for channels you select for everyone, while user groups allow you to configure team-based channels as well. We'll come back to default channels, though, a little later in this presentation, in case you're not quite sure what I mean by all of this. In regard to user groups, they can be constructed around specific teams and departments, and we'll group members so that the teams can be @mentioned and notified, full teams can be invited into key channels, and employees can systematically be included in team-specific channels. Taking a couple minutes to create a few key user groups will further help people leaders in managing their teams and keep them up to date with the most important announcements. So that about members, adding them to channels, grouping users, but just to summarize a few key takeaways before we move forward. You can give access to members to Slack via either email invites or SSO. Members can be proactively added to channels manually or by default, and users can be grouped by team and department to facilitate team management. All three are going to help you give everyone access to your workspace and manage user access efficiently.
Awesome. Thank you for that information, Kyle. That is super, super key and critical. So the next thing we're going to talk about is step 2, which is telling your employees about the launch of Slack and how to help them get started. So communication is really key to any launch, along with setting expectations and providing enablement. Whether you are fully remote, in office, or have a hybrid model, asynchronous communication is really more important than ever. It's critical to provide the right level of communication about any change, setting the right expectations, benefits, and enablement resources. We recommend creating a communication plan. A communication plan is critical to the success of Slack across your teams and organization. It is designed to drive awareness of why you are moving to Slack and outline the unique value it brings to your employees and organization overall. There are 3 critical steps when building a communication plan. For the first, which is step 1, we recommend assigning an executive sponsor to deliver initial communications regarding the launch of Slack. We recommend supporting the change by having an assigned executive sponsor promoting and exemplifying the change. We have seen many successful launches of Slack with the support from the top down. Once you have an executive sponsor, we recommend 2 communication types. For step 2, the first is the initial Slack announcement. Announcing the move to Slack, introducing Slack to all employees, including why you are moving, the value behind it, and where to go for help. We recommend this announcement to be delivered by your executive sponsor who helps drive change at your company. We will tactically discuss this announcement in more detail shortly. And for step 3, the second communication is a team welcome. Team welcomes are sent out by each department leader and further echoed by people managers, welcoming their departments into Slack. This welcome message reiterates what the executive sponsor has explained, including why their department and/or team is moving to Slack. Additionally, they will communicate how their specific department and team will use Slack. And lastly, it'll be able to point them where they can go for help. So let's talk about the Slack announcement in more detail. So you can share your Slack announcement in 4 easy steps. For step 1, we typically see the communication drafted up for your executive to send out. When drafting your announcement, start announcing the move to Slack for work collaboration and when this is going to happen. For example, if you're launching Slack today and that's when you're sending the announcement or the final announcement, you want to reiterate that in the communications. Then inform the employees of the why, what, and how that we talked about earlier. Explain why you have made the decision to move to Slack and what the benefits the employees should receive by using Slack. Close the announcement with support, point the employees to places where they can get help and how they can get started. For step 2, you want to rename the general channel to the announcements - whatever your company name would be. This creates an announcements channel inside of Slack and to share the company-wide update. Every Slack workspace begins with a hashtag general channel that everyone is automatically a part of. And it's also a channel that has required membership, meaning members cannot leave that channel. For these reasons, the general channel is perfect for important announcements that are applicable to everyone in your organization. For step 3, you want to have your executive sponsor post a Slack announcement inside of the new announcements-company channel. When the sponsor posts the message, ensure the announcements uses the @channel at the start of the message, which will notify every person inside of the channel of what message was posted. Owners and admins can also notify all invited members who haven't joined Slack yet about any messages in channels, but the announcement in particular, they can hover over the announcement choosing the More message shortcut and notify pending members to send them all an email alert about the announcement, which is what Kyle talked about earlier. You can learn more about the notify pending at the link on the slide. As a safe catch, we do recommend, lastly, having the executive sponsor send out the same announcement to your employees through email, just to ensure everyone does see the message. For step 4, we want to engage employees, and then they can react to this message with emojis. Ensure you direct employees to a help channel like help-Slack for any questions or hyperlinked getting started resources. Also, we've got you covered here. We want to make your working lives as easy as possible. So to help you draft your launch communication, we prepared some templates you can download at the link on the slide. So to summarize a few key takeaways before we move forward. The first is you want to assign an executive sponsor to deliver initial communications regarding the launch of Slack and really how to amplify the message. For the second, we want to create a communication plan to explain why, what, and how your organization is moving to Slack. For the third, we want to provide support to users with a help-Slack channel and training resources. All 3 of these will help you announce the launch of Slack to your employees and help them get started.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. We're through 2 steps, 2 of 5. We're almost halfway there. So for step 3 of launching Slack, we're going to recommend creating channels for work and social engagement. So this is core to what Slack is all about. Channels really are what makes Slack Slack, and they're the way that you're going to communicate and work in the product. When working in channels, you can bring all the relevant people, information, and tools in a single place and speed up your work. Every company will have nuances to how they approach their channel strategy, but a general rule of thumb is you can start by creating 1 channel per project, team, and function. We'll spend the next several minutes on creating fundamental channels for work and social engagement, as well as review channel best practices. So just from a basic standpoint, there are 3 types of channels: public channels, private channels, and Slack Connect channels. The most likely that you'll be using often is a public channel, and those are going to be denoted by the hashtag. These are for discussing work, projects, social interests, basically information that can be valuable to others. Public channels are visible to anyone in your workspace and available for anyone to join. We encourage you to promote the use of public channels as they drive transparency and access to information to improve how work is done. A few examples of how this public access to all of this information can really benefit the team as a whole is that people can join and leave public channels as they please, meaning they can be involved in conversations that matter most. Think about if you're working on a project and you're done, or you're about to join a project, you really can come and go as it's necessary and keep the work that you're looking at in Slack as relevant to what you do on a daily basis. Public channels also create a repository of knowledge that can be accessible and searchable to all employees in your workspace. The channel history is searchable for everyone in Slack. Searchable log of all conversations and knowledge. This will also aid in ensuring that the same question doesn't have to be answered 1,000,000 times by the same person. It can be answered once in a public channel, and others can search for that question and find the answer, decreasing the redundancy of work. That's going to help people get up to speed quickly, and that's going to also remind us all of how good it feels to have an email box of 0. And then when you really think about onboarding newcomers to these public channels at the company or to a project or to whatever it may be, are going to be able to answer or access, all of the context and information within those public channels. It's a best practice from a Slack perspective to default to public channels whenever possible. The second type of channel is a private channel, and that's going to be denoted by the lock icon. Therefore, discussing confidential projects or sensitive information like budget, hiring, or legal. Private channels can only be joined if someone in the channel invites you. And then the third type of channel is a Slack Connect channel, and these can be either private or public. And these are going to be for working in Slack with people from outside your company. Think of customers, agencies, and vendors. And we'll spend a little bit more time on external collaboration with Slack Connect a bit later today. To enable your organization to the best use of Slack channels and support open and transparent communication, we really encourage you to leave all channel settings open, enabling members to create, join, and leave channels as their work requires. No action is going to be required on your part. These are already the default settings in Slack. But the more restrictive your settings, the more administrative burden. So all you admins out there, make your job easier and let's let things stay a little bit more open. So as far as creating channels, we recommend that you create work and engagement channels, and that can be classified into 4 categories. Announcement channels are going to relay important company and team-wide updates only. Team channels provide a space for each manager and their direct reports to share updates, ask questions, and assign tasks. Project channels support programs and projects bringing people together for cross-functional work. Engagement channels speak to your company culture and values, emphasize diversity and inclusion, and build community around a common interest. In the next slides, we'll give you some best practices for creating these channels in Slack. So let's start a little with announcements channels and company-wide channels. We're going to recommend creating announcement channels to launch at your launch to ensure that your employees stay updated. Announcements-company, in your case, it would be the company that you're coming here from, is used for updates that are applicable to every employee. For example, going public. Announcements department are updates for department-specific information. For example, announcements sales would include an update on the annual sales awards. Announcements locations are updates for everyone in a certain location. Very relevant for COVID updates, with different regions having different rules and guidelines. And then finally, help channels, some of the most important channels, are great for requesting support from other departments. These channels start with the prefix help. Having clear channel naming conventions is key. I can't emphasize that enough, to keeping your workspace organized and making channels easy to find. Think of channel names as your new virtual office map. Once you've created company-wide channels, we recommend assigning these channels as default channels. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Default channels ensure that everyone that joins Slack gets auto-assigned to these channels. One thing to consider, these are not retroactive. So if you already have everyone invited into Slack, we recommend letting all employees who already have joined Slack know about these channels simply by just using them a message in your announcements global channel. Team channels and project channels are typically created by the manager or owner of that particular work. Team channels provide a space for each team to share daily to weekly updates, best practices, or request help from other members of your team. Typically, each manager has a channel with their direct reports. Project channels are going to allow cross-functional teams to come together and work together towards a goal. They start with the prefix proj, followed by the suffix unique to that project. If you are new to working in a channel, we invite you to join the Slack Workshop 101 to learn the best practices for moving projects that you're currently working on into a channel. So check out the link on the slide. Engagement channels, my favorite channels to talk about, the most exciting in my opinion, can help you build a sense of community around shared values, experiences, and interests. Culture channels is your opportunity to manifest your company values and encourage transparency and celebration. For a couple examples, you have a kudos channel for giving praise to coworkers across the organization, celebrating wins, and boosting employee morale. You could create an AMA channel to let your employees ask questions to leadership. For those that don't know, AMA stands for Ask Me Anything. A wellness channel is a great example of how you can provide tips on staying mentally and physically well, or encourage something like a step challenge across the organization. Then you have this idea behind ERG channels. For those that don't know, ERG stand for Employee Resource Groups and help drive a sense of belonging amongst employees who share the same backgrounds or experiences. Some of these channel examples may include, but are definitely not limited to, women, parents, veterans, and we recommend creating these channels that emphasize diversity and inclusion. Isolation really can be a challenge in today's working world with remote work, and these communities ensure employees are supported in their own ways. And then finally, social channels. The channels truly after my own heart are for building community around common interest. They create a space for discussing similar interests or hobbies and can help employees de-stress while connecting with people across the org. These tend to be really light and fun. So think of a channel for furry loved ones in a pets channel, or getting cooking ideas in a cooking channel. Or maybe from a remote perspective, sharing your Zoom backgrounds or remote tips in a remote tips channel. Jamie, what is your favorite social channel?
These are also some of my favorites too. I would say probably the pets channel that we have. Who doesn't love seeing a furry, cute animal when they log into Slack every morning? It's great. What about you?
I do. I spend a lot of time in the Beyonce channel. I need to keep up with Queen Bee, so I keep up with all her latest news in there. So I love it. So just to summarize a few takeaways before we move forward in regard to channel creation and naming. You want to create work channels for company-wide topics, finding help, teams, and projects, and use a naming convention to organize your channels. You can create employee engagement channels to support connection and give employees a safe place to increase their morale and wellness, regardless of where they're located. And then you really want to set channels as public whenever you can so that you can promote an open and transparent environment. These best practices will help your organization make the most of Slack channels and increase your team's productivity.
Perfect. That was such wonderful information on channels, which is such a critical way to how we collaborate and work. So thank you, Kyle. That was amazing. So for step 4, working externally in Slack Connect channels is what we'll cover next. So for step 4 of launch, we do recommend using Slack Connect for external collaboration on Slack by setting up Slack Connect channels. Slack Connect allows different businesses to work together with unprecedented speed in a secure and trusted environment. Slack Connect allows external partners to work and communicate together in Slack instantaneously in a secure and trusted environment. Using Slack Connect extends all the benefits of channel-based communication that you're used to internally to the work you do outside of the boundaries of your company. Slack Connect is already used by 100,000 organizations. 77 of those are a Fortune 100 company and 64% of the Forbes most innovative Slack companies. Can you believe that, Kyle?
There you go. Everybody's using it.
Very impressive. Slack Connect is also included in all paid Slack plans. However, some of your partners might be using the free version of Slack or not using Slack at all yet. If you are on the Enterprise Grid plan, teams on a free plan can join channels they're invited to in your org without having to upgrade or start a free trial. To know which plan you have and learn more about upgrade options, reach out to feedback@slack.com and they'll be able to help you. There are also 3 ways to utilize Slack Connect. So the first is Slack Connect channels. The second are Slack Connect direct messages, also called DMs. And then the third is joining your workspace as a guest. So for Slack Connect channels, they can be used with external contacts who are also on a paid Slack plan. With Slack Connect channels, all contacts remain in their own Slack environment and work directly together through a channel that connects them. It's like a bridge between 2 separate workspaces. You can have up to 250 different companies, including your own, all in one single channel. You can also have unlimited channels with external contacts. Once in channel, they work the exact same way as the channels you are used to working with internally. We recommend you use the prefix EXT for external to name your Slack Connect channel. The second major way we utilize Slack Connect is by Slack Connect DMs, which is the ability to send a direct message to an external contact. Users can simply send a DM by utilizing an external email address. One great point here is that the external contact can be on any Slack plan, not just a paid plan. The idea here is to have a quick follow-up after a meeting, quickly ask a question, or start to develop a stronger partnership with that external company. Once the work begins to evolve and include other contacts from either side, we recommend putting everyone into a Slack Connect channel. Finally, if your external contacts are not on Slack, they can join your Slack workspace as a guest and only access the channels you grant them access to. When launching Slack, there are a few permissions and settings to be aware of for external collaboration. For those on our Pro and Business Plus plans, your options to configure external channels live on the Workspace Permissions page. By default, Workspace owners and admins can manage external channels. This includes accepting a Slack Connect request, deactivating Slack Connect channels, and/or choosing who at their organization can manage Slack Connect channel requests. Workspace admins and owners can choose who can create, edit, disconnect, or archive channels shared with external organizations. With respect to external DMs, do note admins can control who can't or can't use external DMs. Admins can disable Slack Connect DMs if desired as well. On our Enterprise Grid product, you have a dedicated Slack Connect settings page on the org administration level. Kyle, is now time to give your demo, so I'll hand it over to him.
Let's do it. All right, so we're gonna hop over into my demo workspace, and I'm going to show you a little bit around channel creation, and we're also going to talk a little bit about how we could administer Slack Connect within your organization. So bear with me a moment while I share my screen. And we're actually going to do this together. So be ready for an activity after I complete showing this. So don't worry if I'm going too fast or if you're not quite sure what I'm doing. We're going to do it all together once I complete. So what I'm going to do is go over to Slack. You'll see that I'm on my normal main screen. I'm in a DM with myself, talking to myself too often. And what you're going to do is actually navigate to that plus symbol that's in the bottom left-hand corner. And you're going to click that. See where it says channel. You have a variety of options, but for right now, we're going to decide on channel. And in this case, I'm going to create a Slack Connect channel. There are some options that already pop up, but for right now, we're going to say EXT company, yep, if I can learn how to spell, XYZ. And we're going to click next. That's the name of our channel. We're going to keep it public because we like public channels in Slack. And then we're going to have the ability to invite people into this channel. So this can be your coworkers. In this case, because it's an external channel, we're going to probably be sending this invitation to somebody who is outside of our company. So let's just say example at XYZ company. Again, hopefully I can learn how to spell soon. And you'll be able to actually send that invitation by clicking add. You'll also be prompted to inform the administrator if this is someone from an external organization or your own. In this case, this is someone outside of Slack. And then you also have the ability to control whether they can just post or if they can actually post and invite additional people into that channel. So that's something from your own personal perspective that you could decide makes the most sense for security purposes or whatever it may be. And then finally, you do have the ability to include a message so that when you send this out to someone's email, they know who it's coming from and what the purpose is of the invitation. In this case, I'm just going to leave it blank. So we'll send that invitation. and we've got our channel created. And then as an admin, we're actually going to be able to see what these invitations are looking like from both a receiving perspective and a sending perspective. You'll be able to do that by navigating to this ellipses that's on the left-hand side of your screen, going to external connections, going up to view invitations, and selecting that. You're going to be able to see what invitations have been received within the organization and what have been sent. So a good way to keep track of all of these different ways that these different external communications are being exchanged. So I am going to navigate back, and we are going to give activity 1 a try. I hope you were paying attention because I'm not helping at all. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to absolutely help. We're going to walk through it nice and slow, and we're going to make sure that you have the opportunity to do it. So I'm going to give everyone just a moment. Go ahead and open up your Slack, whether that's on the desktop app or that is on the browser. And I'm going to ask you to create any channel. Don't feel like this has to be a Slack Connect channel. Think about whether you want to create a channel that's for work, employee engagement, or a Slack Connect channel if you want to. Just create one channel, but you can pick the type of channel that you want. If you can't remember how to do this, you can follow the steps on the screen. These steps to create a channel are the same no matter what type of channel it is. If you'll remember back on the demo, you got a few different options when you went to that plus symbol. What makes it different is how you choose to name the channel, and depending on its purpose and whether you want to invite internal or external contacts to join the channel. If you're not sure what channel to create, a really good option is to start with a help Slack channel if your workspace doesn't have one already. This can be used for answering employee questions around Slack and sharing training resources like this amazing webinar link. So I'm just going to review these steps one more time, just in case you're still trying to catch up. So for the first step, you're going to go to your main Slack screen. You're going to select that plus button in the bottom left-hand corner. We're going to create a channel. In some cases, you may be prompted to select a workspace to create that channel for. In others, you may not, but just let's go with whatever workspace you're working in. And then giving it a name starting with announcements, proj, help, team, or ext, specifically for that Slack Connect channel. And then add a colleague to that channel by clicking the cluster of pictures in the top right. You can also add an external contact by clicking add members and adding their email address. And then from an admin perspective, you have the ability to approve those invitations by going through those steps that I showed earlier, where you go to that 3-dot icon and going to the external partners, view invitations, and selecting approve. How did I do, Jamie?
That was a wonderful demo. Good job.
I'm glad. All right, let's move on. I'm exhausted from that. All right, so just to summarize a few key Slack Connect takeaways before we move forward. You have the ability to send direct messages to external contacts for quick follow-ups. You also can create a Slack Connect channel when conversations involve multiple people from one or several different companies, 250. So these are the pretty big channels if you want to be able to expand it out. And then you have the ability to have permissions to create Slack Connect channels and DMs and manage those by admins within your settings. These best practices are going to allow your organization to not only work securely and efficiently, but also with a variety of external partners and get work done a heck of a lot faster.
All right. This is why Kyle is the best. That was a wonderful activity and demonstration. So thank you, Kyle.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So next, we're going to talk about the value of the Slack platform in connecting Slack with your other tools. So Slack is able to connect with over 2,600 of the enterprise apps that your team uses every day, which are ready to go in Slack in our app directory. You'll find project management tools like Asana, video conference tools like Zoom and Teams, systems of records like Workday, and developer tools like Jira. And of course, we have our Salesforce Customer 360 integrations that fuels sales, service, and marketing productivity. AI innovation is thriving in the Slack ecosystem with apps like ChatGPT and many more on the way, so you can choose the language models that work best for your business. Slack makes it easier for everyone in your organization to find and use apps. In fact, our app partners see a 28% increase in usage when they integrate with Slack. What this means is that Slack can help you realize more value and ROI from your existing tech stack. We'll show you how you can add your favorite apps in Slack today. Again, with over 2,600 apps in the Slack app directory, we want to ensure your organization is as productive as possible and gets the most value out of all of your tools, not just Slack. When we view apps, we think of 3 different buckets for productivity. The first being productivity apps. These apps are encouraged for every member to have integrated, as they are tools you will use multiple times per day and are widely used within the entire organization. We have role-specific apps, which are used by particular teams to help with duty-specific tasks. And finally, we have custom apps, which require no or low-code capabilities and allow for customized processes to occur that help the organization overall. And when it comes to the Slack platform, we recommend this progression. So the first piece of the progression, beginning with a governance system to keep your data secure and adhere to your own internal policies. For the second, we recommend rolling out broadly trusted integrations, such as your core productivity toolset. The third would be introducing Slack integrations to specific teams and business units that already utilize their own core tools each and every day. And finally, utilizing Slack's API to build custom applications tailored to your own business objectives. And if you happen to be on Enterprise Grid, we now support organizational-wide deploys, which allows owners and admins to standardize app management practices, like app approvals, for instance, across all workspaces. So again, making Slack easier to utilize than ever. An important step to governance with apps in Slack would be setting up an app approval process for administrators to access. It is important as it allows for end users to integrate apps critical to business processes and help to decrease context switching and increase productivity for users. We've prepared a checklist of important things we recommend to do setting up an app approval process. We've listed this checklist on the screen, and also there's 2 resources you can access on the right-hand side here when you download the PDF, which will contain all the links and resources from these slides.
All right, I'm back on main stage. It's demo time. We're getting through it, everybody. Let's see how I can do. All right, so we're going to demonstrate a little bit around app installation and administration. So I'm going to show you how to install the Zoom app in Slack. And maybe you don't use Zoom. Start thinking of the different apps that potentially you might be using on the daily basis. But this is just for an example. So I'll give a demo, and I'll, again, watch carefully, because there is activity 2 coming up after this. And I want to make sure that everybody feels confident administering and installing their apps in Slack. So I am going to share my screen again. Bear with me. And I'm going to navigate to my home section, where you're going to see just generalized Slack. You see this app section down here. We're not going to go over there quite yet. Right now, I'm going to show you a little bit more around app administration. So when we're thinking of what apps we want to allow our members to use, productivity apps are going to be the most common apps that we're taking advantage of. And I'm also moving along without saying anything. First, you're going to go to the top left-hand corner, and you're going to go to Tools and Settings, and you're going to Manage Apps and select the workspace that you're going to be doing this app administration for. But as I was saying, when you're thinking of the different tools that you want your employees to have the ability to access and install, productivity apps are going to be the most common apps. So overall, we're going to be thinking of how do we want to manage requiring app approval. Generally speaking, when we go to app management settings within this manage apps section, you're going to have the ability to require app approval. And so my recommendation is going to be to keep that turned on, because you're not necessarily going to want people to be able to install whatever app they want to use. You also, from this screen, again, this is app management settings, are going to be able to decide who is able to approve these different apps being installed within your workspace. But let's say I want all this locked down. I want to make sure that I have this approval process, but I know about certain productivity apps that I want to utilize, and I know that everybody in the organization is going to utilize. For example, Zoom is a really useful tool for spinning up meetings within channels and within DMs. You can schedule meetings directly from Slack. So let's try Zoom first. So I'm going to go up to Browse, and I'm going to search for Zoom. Once we get to Zoom, you'll notice that we actually, once it loads,
everything takes longer in a remote world.
Always.
Yes.
We have the ability to restrict or approve Zoom for this workspace. So in this case, I want to make sure that everyone has the ability to install Zoom into their Slack workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and click Approve for Workspace. And what that means is that this will no longer have a requirement of approval from that previous screen that I was just showing you. So now we go back into Slack. What every employee within your organization is going to be able to do is go to this app section. You'll notice in the bottom of my left-hand bar, and click Add Apps. This is also going to show you all of the different apps within the Slack directory. So a bunch of different things. This should get your mind thinking of things that you're using on a daily basis that you'll want to install and take advantage of the different productivity abilities that it will provide your team. But in this case, we would type in Zoom, and we would go ahead and install that into Slack. So now it's the activity time. I hope everybody was paying attention, because we're going to go through activity 2. Don't worry, I'll take this one even slower, because I know that that was a lot of information. So I want everyone to navigate back into their Slack. I'll give you a second to, again, pull it up in either the browser or in your Slack app. And I'm going to ask you to install an app in Slack. So this doesn't need to be Zoom. It doesn't need to be, something that is super common. Just think about something that you work on every single day that you're having to switch back and forth from. This is going to save you time by having it installed in app. So just pick one for the purpose of this activity and install it in Slack. And if you can't remember how to do this, I'm going to just walk through these steps one more time as slowly as I can. So we're going to go back to our home view. That's that little home icon that's in the top left hand of your Slack screen. You're going to scroll down to that app section. You're going to click the plus sign, and you're going to add apps. You're going to search for the app in the app search bar. You're going to select the name of the app and click add. And then as an admin, again, you have the ability to navigate to that top left-hand corner, go to the manage app settings under settings and tools, and either approve that app for the entirety of the organization and control how open or closed you want the app approval process to be. So I'll pause for a second and let you review these settings again, or these instructions, again. But don't worry, if you need to come back to it, we've got plenty of information, plenty of resources that we'll be providing you at the end of this session. And I think that brings us through the demos, Jamie. I think we've got the demos down.
Absolutely nailed it. Wonderful job,
Thank
Kyle.
goodness. We did it. We did it. Okay. So just to summarize a few takeaways before we move forward, you're going to have the ability to allow members to install apps in Slack, and you should. It's what makes life a lot more productive. We're going to see a huge increase in the productivity of these apps and the use of these apps by installing them directly into your Slack. You also have the ability to set up a pre-approved list of apps that end users can integrate via our Slack directory. So when you're thinking of administrative burden and not having to approve every single app that wants to be installed, think of the apps that you'll let anybody use and get that pre-approved list going. And then for apps that aren't pre-approved, you do have the ability to define a process internally for approving app requests. All three will help your team maximize the power of Slack integrations and really your tech stack in general.
Wow, I cannot believe it, but the webinar is over now. So we've gone through all of our content. But just to sum up, I know. But just to sum up, we learned 5 steps you can follow to effectively launch Slack at your organization, which are listed here on the screen. And we just want to say thank you so much for staying with us and for taking the time to absorb this content. In terms of next steps, we do invite you to download the PDF handout where you'll find all the slides and links we presented today. You can access the PDF either within the link or below the video. There are a lot of training resources you can check out. If you'd like to continue to grow your admin skills, you can register for our Admin 101 webinar and join the Slack certified programs at the links on the slide. We also have a lot of great Slack training resources available in the resources section of our Slack website. Finally, if you do have any questions, feel free to go to our help section at slack.com/help. You can log a ticket and our team will reach out to you. Kind reminder that you can get all these links in the training summary, so don't forget to download the PDF. Thank you so much, team, and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.